Well, welcome to our monthly Refugee Alliance meeting. We hope that we're going to get more people coming in. We have quite a number of exciting things we're going to talk about today. This morning, we're going to have a presentation by by Sarah and Sarah from the International Rescue Committee, and I will not go into having this when they come to talk to us, they will tell us what the International Rescue Committee is. But as we usually do, we go around to introduce ourselves, but I think that I would like us to specially welcome Sonia. How do you pronounce your last name, Sonia?
Lonergan.
Lonergan. So, Sonia is the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Bureau for Refugee Services, and we are privileged to have you. I'll give Sonia 3 to 4 or 5 minutes to introduce herself and tell us what she does, and how excited, why we're so excited, especially in the planning committee, to have her in this meeting. Sonia, over to you.
Okay, and thank you for inviting me to speak at your meeting today. My name is Sonia Lonergan. I'm the new community engagement coordinator for the Bureau of Refugee Services with the state of Iowa. I've been in the position for just over 3 weeks. My first day was February 3rd. I was previously with the Iowa Department of Public Health here in Des Moines with the state. And prior to that, I was in the Chicago area at a nonprofit for about 10 years. So in my role here, I will be planning workshops and seminars, classes, any resources to help refugees adjust to life here in the United States. A few examples of some things I'm working on now to hopefully start for this spring, or we're working with the insurance division with the state on a workshop on the importance of homeowners and car insurance for refugees. And we'll be working with some leaders in the Afghan community to present the information to Afghan refugees. I've also been in contact with the DART, the public transit agency in Des Moines, to work on some workshops and seminars on how to use the bus. So we'll be looking to do events like that throughout the state. I will be working across the state, even though I'm based in Des Moines. So I don't think that was 4 minutes, but that's just a little bit of what I'll be working on. And if any of you have any suggestions on things that are needed in your community, I'm happy to help you work on those. I know that I'm not in Johnson County, but any ways that I am able to help you, I'm happy to do that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia, and you're welcome. I think that you probably have had the opportunity to know about this group, but you probably have discussed with Mark a lot about the group, and we welcome you because basically what we do has to do focus on refugees, and here in mainly Johnson County, but we can say Eastern Iowa because we cover Cedar Rapids too. So you're very welcome. The goal for this group so far has been to provide an opportunity for us to have to bring people who are really interested in refugee issues together. So it has always served as a clearinghouse where people come in and we share ideas. We know who is doing what, and therefore we're able to reference people to different places whenever we come in contact with them. So some of us are with government agencies like you, some of us are with nonprofits, some of us are with churches, some of us are individuals who are just providing services. And it's interesting to know how we have been able to come together to help this group that needs to be welcomed to this part of the state. So you're welcome, and we hope that with time you have the opportunity to share more with us what you do as a group. Anything else that anybody would like Sonia to know? I think that she's a very critical part of what we do. Okay, great. So with that, I would like us to go around and introduce ourselves. Sonia has introduced herself, so let us go around and introduce ourselves so that she knows who is here. And so I'll start with Ed.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Ed Cranston with First Presbyterian Church. And Sonia, if you could share your contact information, that'd be great.
Thank you. And Ed is also a member of the planning committee for the Refugee Alliance. John.
Oh, hi. Good morning, everyone. I'm Joan Vandenberg, and I'm a member of the planning committee and community volunteer.
Yeah. John worked with the Iowa City School District and very, very instrumental to having the cultural liaisons that we have in the Iowa City School District, and has been very, very active in many things that has to do with immigrants and refugees in the area. Peter.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Gerlach. I am faculty at the University of Iowa in the International Studies program, and I am executive director of the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council. I also serve on the planning committee of the Refugee Alliance.
Yeah, plays a big role in the community too, and bringing people. Jessica, back.
Hi, I'm Jessica Beck. I'm with Johnson County Social Services and specifically the General Assistance Program.
Thanks, Jessica. Jenny.
Good morning, I'm Jenny Hager, and I'm a community relations rep with the Mayor Group Iowa, and we are one of the MCOs in the state of Iowa. There is 2 and soon to be 3 in July, so we are one of the soon to be 3.
Thanks, Jenny, for what you do. Wendy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Ford, and I work at the City of Iowa City in the City Manager's Office.
Thanks, Wendy. Will.
Hi, I'm Will Cap. I work with IC Compassion. I manage a program called the Global Food Project at the Johnson County Historic Poor Farm, which is garden space, either small or large, for predominantly for immigrant and refugee families, but not exclusive. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Will. Elizabeth. Is Elizabeth there?
Yeah, hi, sorry. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Bernal, and I'm one of the culture liaison for the school district, specific with the Latino population. Thank you.
Oh, you didn't say your other projects.
Well, yeah, I'm working as a culture liaison, but also I'm a co-founder of the Open Hairland, and I'm a board member of the CWJ. And,
Okay.
And work with the community.
Thanks. Thanks, Elizabeth. Kelly.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Schneider. I'm the Johnson County Mobility Coordinator. So I get to connect people with transportation resources. One of the things that Sonia mentioned was introducing immigrants and refugees how to ride the bus, and that's definitely something I do.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Kelly. So I left 2 people out, Sarah, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and then they'll give a presentation for us for about their organization, the International Rescue Committee. I'll hand over to Sarah, whichever of you would take first.
We can each introduce ourselves maybe, and then I'll start out and then I'll pass it to my colleague.
Do you have a PowerPoint to share? You want me to allow you?
No, we don't. No.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I'm Sarah Terlau. I'm the executive director for IRC in Iowa. So nice to meet you.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Zainich. I am the resettlement manager for IRC in Iowa. It is good to see many of you. You may recognize me as having been on the meetings previously when I was at CMC. So as I promised when I left CMC, you guys can't get rid of me. And so I'm back now working with IRC in Des Moines. Okay.
Nice to see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So I'll kick it off and just give a little bit of a overview, maybe of IRC as a organization, and then a little bit of an intro on what we've been doing since we opened in Iowa. And then I'll pass it to Sarah just to give a little deeper dive into our programming. And we'll mix in a little bit of our ambitions and kind of goals for the next couple of years, which is where we become more relevant to sort of the Eastern Iowa context, or we hope we will become more relevant. So quick overview of the International Rescue Committee generally. It's we're about to celebrate our 100th anniversary in 2033. We were founded at the request of Albert Einstein due to the persecution of populations in the lead up to World War II and onward. So our origins are linked to the 1930s build up to World War II, and our programming has always been is founded on those fleeing violence, persecution, and war. So we have always had large programs all over the world helping those who are fleeing conflict. We work in about 40 countries currently, and then we also have on the US side refugee resettlement programming. We do a lot more than that, but that's sort of our core historical mandate. And so we work in about 30 cities and probably, 25 states across the US. And in July of last year, we opened our office in Iowa. So it's the first time IRC has a presence in Iowa. And we opened in Des Moines, which was something we did with lots of consultation, approval from state refugee coordinator, so from MOC. And at this point, we have about 20 staff, and we are doing that core programming. So we're very focused for now on the refugee population. So we're doing refugee arrivals, those first 90 days, meeting them at the airport, and doing that first 90 days of real initial resettlement. We then also offer a second program, which for those of you who know the refugee weeds, it's match grant. So it's an employment, economic focused 6 to 8 months of support where we help them become self-sufficient and able to basically cover their own costs. And then we also have a program that is like intensive case management. So for high needs populations, single moms, elderly, disabled, etc. That's a service we can offer a bit longer term as well. And then we have a small Wells Fargo financial empowerment grant that we're also implementing and hope to have continue. We expect to have about 175 refugee arrivals this fiscal year, but we expect we'll probably increase that slightly because we know that the Biden administration is trying to reach that 125,000. And then that requires everybody to take, a little bit more than they have, stretch and grow a little bit more than they have. So we're really looking forward to actually increasing our refugee arrivals. Maybe I'll just say about sort of Eastern Iowa and some of our ambitions, and then I'll pass to Sarah. But the reason we got connected with this group is because we're already looking at needs outside of Des Moines. We know that Des Moines has the majority of refugee arrivals. That's historical data shows us that the vast majority are arriving into Des Moines. But there's a lot of need and a lot of potential for refugees to be resettled in other areas. We know CMC is doing it in Cedar Rapids. So we were looking at, what could the IRC do outside of Des Moines? Where are their gaps? Where are their needs? And right away, we were pointed in the direction of the 380 corridor. So we looked at Waterloo to a lesser extent, and then Cedar Rapids and Iowa City quite intensively. So that's kind of how we got reconnected to this group. And thanks to Peter and Sunday, who were very welcoming and who spoke with us early on in our kind of explorations of the East. And so we're kind of zeroing in on Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, but we're still in the very much the early kind of stages. What we potentially would do would be probably a second, potentially, this is not confirmed, but are looking at a possibility of being a second resettlement agency in Cedar Rapids, and or doing some refugee resettlement into Iowa City itself. But that isn't just, that is not, we don't have donors who've signed up. We don't have, it's not official, but this is our ambition. And we're very much getting encouraging feedback from everybody we talk to, including donors, state refugee coordinator, kind of all of the stakeholders who matter and who could help us make it happen. We're also looking a little bit at Marshalltown, because we've just had a ton of outreach from community in Marshalltown, which has a big Latin, clearly like a really long history at this point of Spanish speaking. We know there's a lot of Burmese, there's increasingly Congolese. So that's another area we're looking at. But really, I think probably Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area is kind of first on our list. We also, final comment is, we're also looking at immigration. Our ambitions are not just to grow geographically, but we also, everybody we talk to again is saying legal services, immigration, that's a huge need. So we're also working quite hard and actively right now to get immediate as possible, funding, staffing to start to do some legal services, for Afghan parolees. There's a long list of parolees at this point that we could support with legal services. And of course, a huge diversity of Spanish-speaking population beyond the parolees that we know from Venezuela, Cuba, etc. So in a really quick, that was a really quick rundown of sort of who we are, where we are, and what our main ambitions are for the next year to 2 years. But I'll let Sarah also speak, since you know her. She'll give you the rundown on what she's been up to since she joined IRC. Over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for having us, hosting us, letting us come speak with you today. Yeah, we opened our office technically on July 1st was when we got the keys and moved into our fancy building that needed a lot of work. And so we've been working through construction. We were fortunate to be able to start welcoming folks at the end of the last federal fiscal year. So we started receiving our first clients in about September. We welcomed 22 people in a little over a month, and to get folks in during that last federal fiscal year. And we are on track to have, I think about a little over 90 people by the end of March, between October and the end of March already. So we are very eager and excited to have large numbers of arrivals coming in. We're starting to feel the increased pace of arrivals, which is good news. That processing and all the things that have to happen before refugees actually land on US soil are actually moving quickly and moving towards ramping back up refugee arrivals nationwide. We have hired up very quickly and we've grown as a team. Back when I joined in like late June, early July, There were, I think, 5 of us on the team, 5 or 6 of us, and we are now at about 19 people. So we have grown quickly and have grown through the programs. Sarah highlighted all of like the specific individual programs that we offer, but we also have staff that are working kind of across those programs as additional support. So we're fortunate to have a housing coordinator who works to develop relationships with landlords and provide additional education to clients about maintaining homes. We have our a health and wellness specialist through some funding from the Bureau of Refugee Services, who helps make sure that folks are getting their benefits applied for in a timely manner, that they're getting the most use out of their medical benefits, especially, and working towards starting up the PM Plus program, which I know was piloted in Eastern Iowa. So we're excited to get things rolling in Des Moines as well. And then we've got a program called community sponsorship. So this is something that you may have heard about through the news, through other organizations. There's a lot of different ways that that looks. And there is private sponsorship, which is like what we saw with Uniting for Ukraine or Afghan arrivals. But then, and also private sponsorship as it will come out through the Welcome Corps, which is in the process of being rolled out in, I think they're hoping to start arrivals in April or May, initially with kind of random assignments and working towards community members being able to connect and kind of directly source refugees. So it's a lot of interest within refugee communities in hopes that people could bring family in a more timely manner by being able to sponsor them directly. But then we've got community sponsorship or co-sponsorship where people walk alongside us as an agency to resettle refugees. It's very similar to the program that CMC is doing with co-sponsorship and having community members and sponsor groups take on portions of the resettlement process while working really closely and in collaboration with IRC, as opposed to private sponsorship that's much more independently led and driven by the community sponsor groups. You know, we've kind of gotten to a point where we've stabilized. I say that with a little bit of kind of levity, because there's always hope to grow and hope to see how we can continue to meet the needs and fill gaps. But we've stabilized at this time, looking at how we can maintain our program and make sure that we're offering the highest quality programming. Very fortunate to have connection and strong ties to our headquarters that provides a wealth of technical expertise, but also looking to make sure that we're working closely with local ECBOs to both get input and also provide support and kind of bolster up the ECBO communities as well. Yeah, I think that's, am I missing anything, Sarah?
No, but I think I think we'd be really curious to have some, I guess, some general feedback or comments or thoughts on, I guess, what are the, you know, what do you see as the primary needs? Is there a place for the IRC if we wanted to come into Johnson County? I guess just any thoughts, recommendations, advice, priorities that you would see for us to consider, because we also need to, you know, we want to put together a very compelling, comprehensive argument essentially to donors, to our headquarters, so that they support us to do this as well. So just really curious for feedback.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah and Sarah. And we're going to have what we'll do is if people have questions, we'll have people ask you questions, and then like you have requested, I think if people have some suggestions to make and about here, I know that Peter and I and you two had a very extensive discussions and we're able to give you our perspective, but definitely this is a larger group with more varied and also would be able to provide a lot more. So questions and comments, suggestions.
Well, you know, I always have something to say. So I was especially interested to hear about the need for legal services. And that is something, having been worked in the school district for a number of years, we rarely knew the legal status of our kids, and we weren't supposed to know the legal status. And so sometimes having a service that has a little bit more flexibility for immigrants and refugees is a lovely thing. Because I mean, and there are refugees that are, you know, obviously eligible for additional services, but then we also have, you know, families here on the lottery or here as, you know, seeking asylum. And so I think, and I know that the resources that we have in this community are pretty tapped out in trying to assist with those very complicated immigration issues. So I love the idea of having some flex on serving all immigrants in addition to the refugees that we're resettling. So, but it sounds wonderful. And I'm thrilled that people are recognizing that we have great needs here in Eastern Iowa. So.
I just wanted to kind of echo what Joan just said, just the idea that there are services that would specifically be for people with refugee status versus other folks who are immigrating in a variety of ways. In my work at the Gardens, that is not a question that I ask, and that's, you know, sort of on purpose to avoid sort of creating divisions or whatever. So yeah, I just kind of, I don't know how exact my contribution is, but I just wanted to echo what Joan said, because I run into the same thing often and am always working to, I think that those divisions exist no matter what, but if we as organizations cannot continue to sort of reify them, I think that really helps.
Yeah, Will, I think that thanks for coming in and for talking, but I think your what you do is actually very, very good in community building and creating that inclusivity and creating an avenue for people to. Can you just say a little bit more of what you do so that Sarah and Sarah would know exactly you know, what the Global Food Project does and how that is helping in building communities and bringing people together from different backgrounds and different refugees, immigrants, and also members of the Iowa community. So talk about it a little bit more so they know what you do.
Yeah, for sure. But Sunday, you have to also promise that you'll interrupt me if all of a sudden it's been 6 minutes and I'm like, oh, and also there's this other thing.
Yeah, I will interrupt you.
So generally speaking, so we're a program of I See Compassion, but we have 2.5 acres at the Johnson County Historic Poor Farm, and that's divided up into 80 small plots that are roughly the size of 2 parking spaces, and then larger plots, which are about 1/10 of an acre. And we call those family and market plots. So the family plot is just kind of like a bigger community garden plot, how you would normally think of it. And then those market plots are about 1/10 of an acre, just to like, so people can get their feet wet on scaling up, getting used to growing on a larger scale, getting used to selling and seeing if they want to do that. So that's sort of like the economic development part of it. But the outreach that we have, you know, it's like as Sunday was saying, the biggest focus on my part with the program is that there are as many different kinds of people at the gardens as possible, because not everybody wants to garden. I have no interest in grabbing people who don't want to garden and forcing them to do it and showing them how to do it. It's just getting people from all of the different communities in Iowa City coming together to garden, so that there is that common bond of like, hey, we all want to grow tomatoes. And look, my tomatoes have failed. Have yours? No, I have 1,000. You can take mine. But there are, you know, a lot of Spanish speakers among that group of Spanish speakers. They are predominantly folks from Mexico and Central America. Some of them are here that are documented. Some of them are undocumented. Some of them have kids that were born here. Some do not. Some people are Spanish speakers that are here on a visa working at the university. And then there are also a lot of Sudanese folks and the folks from Sudan. It's also a mix of people who are here on the lottery, people who are here as refugees. And then there are also a lot of Congolese folks and I always feel very ignorant because every time I ask questions about, what do you mean when you say you're Congolese? It becomes more complicated, and my understanding of that geopolitical system is not great enough for me to say anything intelligent about it. But anyway, those are, again, a lot of different people coming to the United States for a lot of different reasons in a lot of different ways. So the purpose of the gardens from the community building perspective is just, again, getting all of these different folks from all of these different places and just really focusing on the fact of the thing that is tying all of us together is that we want to grow food, and let's leave it at that. Rather than trying to delineate between statuses and funding in that way. So yeah, I'll stop now because I could continue to go on, but I don't want to not to step in.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't have to stop you, but
yes,
yeah. Okay. Kelly, you wanted to ask a question, I think.
I did.
Okay.
I'm going to echo both Joan and Will, because talking about the different statuses of immigration, refugees, lottery interrupts transportation also, especially in terms of Medicaid. So I oftentimes have lottery residents come in and they're looking for non-emergency medical transportation, and they may not have that until they hit that, I want to say, 5-year mark. So that's definitely something that it's just not created equal, and I don't understand why it's not black and white. I think the service should just be available for all. But I did just want to chime in on that. That's all.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, so one of the things you talked about is, one of the things I like is the fact that you're not just focusing on resettlement, because that means people who are coming in new. One of the things we've identified in this area is that we have a lot of secondary, what do you call them? Secondary refugees?
Migrants,
moved,
yeah.
Yeah, many of them have either, there are many I know who actually maybe came into New York State, were resettled, and then they found out, oh, Iowa is a better place for us to be, to raise our families. And so they have moved here as secondary. Now, the problem I've realized throughout the time we've been trying in the Refugee Alliance is the fact that it's difficult for us to track or to know even who the secondary refugees, unless they belong to certain groups, and therefore we identify people who have moved into the community through those community groups. And so I think, if I recall, Peter and I emphasized the need to actually work with these groups, as cultural groups or community groups that exist, because these are where you actually be able to find out who secondary migrants or refugees. I think it's not just refugees, but even people who come to the United States on green card. Most of them, the places they know are New York, California, and some of these big places, and so they have to stay in those places before they finally move to Iowa or other places. So I don't know if you have been able to, like I said, one of the things we struggle with is actually knowing the number of people who are moving as secondary refugees or migrants into the community. I mean, it's not as if the services for the people we know, we still need a lot more, but I think knowing that number is critical and very important. Is the Bureau for Refugee Services helpful in this respect?
It does feel very difficult to get accurate recent figures and data. And it feels like we've done a lot of sort of cobbling together from different sources. I mean, the Bureau, I'm gonna let Sarah answer this actually, because I think she has more of a history engaging with the Bureau. But to give a short answer, I would say it's very hard to get statistics. Like, I was trying to find the number of asylum seekers in Iowa, and like, I just, it's like you're piecing together facts from all these different sources, because there is nothing comprehensive. The best comprehensive I've been able to find is what is it? The American Immigration Council has some pretty consolidated data. But Sarah, do you have any specific to the Bureau, any thoughts or inputs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can get challenging, or I shouldn't say challenging. I think one of the limitations of the Bureau, for better or worse, is that the Bureau of Refugee Services is funded largely by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which has a mandate to a very specific population. So that's the refugees, people who've been granted asylum, special immigrant visa holders. Recently was added like Afghans and Ukrainians who've received humanitarian parole, survivors of human trafficking, Cuban and Haitians who've been paroled into the United States. A lengthy list, but those tend to be the most popular. And so the Bureau of Refugee Services has a mandate to provide services to those individuals who have been in the US for less than 5 years. Without getting too much onto a soapbox, it's because the federal government assumes that the funding that they're giving to state organizations, resettlement organizations, to serve those groups, the hope is that they're self-sufficient and no longer in need of services after 5 years. And the assumption that the federal government puts out and why they target those groups is that they're coming without the support of a family member, or without the support that's perceived when students come to go to school. People who move between states, so the secondary migrants that we're talking about, aren't tracked in any kind of way, because immigrants, one of the freedoms and rights that we have in the United States is the right of freedom of movement. And so immigrants have the right to move freely across the United States within the bounds of the United States to any place they wish, anytime they wish. And so that's where it gets kind of tricky with secondary migrants as far as data tracking, because the only organization that is truly tracking addresses and statuses and who's where is USCIS, or US Customs and Immigration Services, through the required updates that people have to fill out through that AR-11 form. But they don't really like to release that data on who's where. Again, for for well-intentioned reasons. It's safety, it's security, it's making sure that people have the freedom and the safety to move anywhere they wish. But it makes it really tough when we're all trying to figure out who's in our community and where are their gaps and where are their needs. I know there was a big push this last what is it, the decennial, the every 10-year census count to include immigrants, and you can kind of piece together data, but because of security reasons, it does get really tough to know who's where. We've worked with the Bureau before to get information and reports on the number of people who've submitted benefits applications and marked that they are a refugee or they're eligible because they're an ORR eligible population. And they're able to kind of de-identify data so we can get that information. But that requires that they've applied for benefits. So there's always some kind of gaps and people that may not be counted or people that may not be included in that. So yeah, all that to say that you can piece together different pieces of data, but there's no like comprehensive information that can be pulled really.
And I have another kind of point to make, and this may not be under the purview of what IRC does, but I worked for the school district for a little over 25 years. And when I first came into the district in the mid-90s, we had about 100 kids in the English language learning program. And when I left the district a year and a half ago, we had 1,800. So the growth of immigrant population in that 25 years was exponential. I mean, it's a huge increase. And so I see some progress in our institutions in Johnson County accommodating the needs, but I think as the Johnson County community, we need to work harder to build our capacity. When things aren't translated, it about makes me crazy. And and just having interpretation services and having the rest of our Iowa City community understand our new neighbors and what they can do to support and welcome them. So there's our next our next session in March is going to be a welcoming initiative that North Liberty and some local people have done, which sounds really cool. But I don't know if, I mean, does that, first of all, I don't know if anyone else has to comment on it, but it also feels like that's part of your mission. I mean, because there's what you do, but then what does our community do? How do we work? And as you said, walk alongside our newest refugees to, or our newest neighbors to support them.
Sonia, I know you have just started in this office, but given that you are going to be community engagement is going to be basically your work. I suppose that this is part of the challenges that you're going to face actually. And have any thoughts based on what you see, what you have seen in the office so far and what you've heard here?
Yeah, just one thing that I wanted to piggyback on what Sarah said regarding the data. If you are interested in data, we can run some reports for you with the limitations as Sarah did mention. And I ran one, I didn't run it, but I had our operations manager run one last week. It's a breakout of those it's from ORR. So it is limited, but it is by city. So if you're interested in seeing that data, I'm happy to send that to you. But there are, it's refugee, it's just who we have data on. So as Sarah explained, there are a lot of limitations on that. But I'm happy to share that if it's helpful to you. Okay. Or if there's other information that you're looking for, I'll see what I can do to get it.
Okay, thank you.
And then Joan, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question that you just asked, because I was thinking about the data as you were talking. So
okay. No, I was just, and this is, kind of your wheelhouse. It's just how do we engage as a community to fully understand our new neighbors? And I mean, like I had one immigrant woman, we just talked about this issue, and she goes, we're invisible. People don't know that we're here. And so how do we build capacity as a community to welcome them? So that was my soapbox speech. So.
Yeah, and that's what I'm working on. I think that's a very difficult question to answer, right. And making sure, working with all of the community partners as you're doing there's a lot of it's word of mouth, just making sure that you're spreading the word about the work that you're doing.
Well, and I think just, for those of us who have provided services in the community for years, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know how different our system is because we only know the United States system. And so I think that's one of the purposes of this organization is to help people who are supporting the entire community like this. These are the unique circumstances that we're dealing with, and it was the same in school. Schools are very different in some of the other countries. We don't know that. They don't know our system. How do we bridge that? So anyway, that's tough question.
Sarah has posted that these are some of the things they are, some of the information they are looking for: housing access, safe and secure housing, affordable housing options for new arrivals, immigrants, low incomes, school capacity to integrate immigrant children, employment opportunities in Johnson County and surrounding counties. And so, and these are a lot of some of the issues we have discussed in Refugee Alliance and will continue to discuss, because these are issues that affect refugees and immigrants generally. I was at a legislative forum I think that was 2 weeks ago, and one of the issues we discussed there was something that has to do with documentation, with documents that people bring in who have graduated. They are medical doctors, they are engineers from where they are coming from, and they come here and they don't have access to be able to get the kind of jobs that they would want to do and also be contribute to the community. So those are some of the things we're going to talk about.
And I think housing is a ginormous barrier for many families, and part of it is just housing's expensive. But I know that what I've heard a little bit is sometimes recent immigrants don't have a landlord reference because they just are here for the first time. And so I know there was some program to kind of help with deposits and the reference issue and kind of be the kind of to mediate that issue. I mean, I think that would be very useful. Some of the ARPA money really helped our housing crisis, but with that going away, I'm very scared of how desperate our housing situation is going to become here in Johnson County, because it's expensive, and there's no cheap, easy solution to it.
Okay. Sorry, did you want to say something, Sarah?
I was just going to ask a question, but it might open up a can of worms.
Oh,
okay.
I was just curious. I know, even in the past few years, the Iowa City Metro, right, has grown, it feels like exponentially. Are you seeing more access, or is everything that's coming up kind of out of the price range, or landlord kind of restrictions making it inaccessible for folks?
Well, I was kind of in the weeds on all of this going on 2 years ago. So at that point, it did not feel more accessible. It feels like a lot of the growth and a lot of the development is higher end, with rents starting, much more expensive. With that said, I've been out of that, hands-on work for a little bit. So others might have a better sense of that. Because I think there is kind of a trickle effect, something new and fancier is built. So that means that, I know, for example, on Benton Street, those apartments used to be almost exclusively for students. And now students have moved to different student housing, and we have tons of immigrants who live in those apartments that were formerly held by students. So, it's kind of a can of worms, and I'm not sure that we have any worms here that can answer the question.
I think that Will has provided some very good information of services some of the services that are provided on this. So I think that I think efforts, the summary would be that efforts have been made. There have been some advocacy in terms of that, but whether we have actually gotten to where we should be, the answer is no. There are still a lot of challenges ahead that we need to face, and some of the things that your organization and probably Sonia coming in with is going to help is with some of this in some of these areas. Okay, if you wouldn't mind, I want us to go to the next item on the agenda because we have a few minutes to go, and that is one of the things that we really want to do this year is to make sure that we organize a World Refugee Day that is going to provide an avenue for many of us to participate in and be able to hear what is happening around. John, can you talk about that and
Sure.
the issue of the subcommittee?
Well, I mean, we've kind of floated around some ideas, and at our last meeting, we had some volunteers to just have a little subcommittee to kind of plan. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, we had a really ambitious effort where we had a conference where we actually held a World Refugee Conference where we had a lot of speakers, and then we also had a soccer tournament. I don't know if we have the bandwidth to pull off something quite like that, but we're looking for volunteers, and I'd like to convene a meeting maybe in the next week or two to start thinking, what are some ideas that we could do to heighten the awareness of our refugees in the community and have some, I think, some learning, but also some fun. So I know the outreach folks from the police department signed up, and so did Linda from the health department. So I know I have a couple of people, I mean, I'm going to reach out to them, but if any of you might be interested in helping plan an event, which it's June 20th, but I think most people are probably celebrating the weekend before, which is June 17th. So if there's interest, I'd like to just convene a subcommittee and just kind of brainstorm some ideas and see what we can pull off. Or if you have an idea, but not necessarily don't have the time to, be on a committee, just send it to me.
Okay.
Because I think we could do something that would be a really fun community building activity, and hopefully we can all learn something. So you
That's
can,
great.
Another group that might be interested is the Johnson County United Nations Association.
that's right. Yes, I'm
I bet
sorry.
There'll be, and also with the Iowa United Nations Association, that they would be interested in one of their sustainable goals is with refugees. So definitely, I could reach out to them and
Okay.
Right, yeah, thank you for mentioning that they did indicate an interest in that. So I think there's some fun things we could do that maybe wouldn't be quite as taxing as an entire conference, but a mini version of that. So
If you all, as you're talking about that, are looking for a place, I know that the Johnson County Farm, often called the Poor Farm, but please call it the County Farm because I don't like that name, the Poor Farm. But that is an event space. Would be a possibility. So.
oh, that'd be great.
Great. And then probably there's other organizations too that that we can actually reach out to, so that if you know any organizations like that. Yeah, Peter.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, it'd be really good to contact, local ECBOs. There are already plans underway to celebrate World Refugee Day. It's just a question of when they plan on celebrating and how they plan on celebrating. So we wouldn't want to necessarily duplicate efforts, or we'd want to say, like, this is happening too. Would you also like to come to this?
Do you have some contact information that you could pass along to us?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I just don't exactly know who's doing what these days, so.
Sure.
Good.
And Elizabeth is one of them.
Oh, of course. Oh, yes. Well, I know how to get a hold of Elizabeth for sure. So,
Okay, Peter, can you make the announcement about the?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've shared it with a few folks here, but the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council is holding, I think, a program that's very relevant to what we've been discussing today, and very relevant for the group gathered here. On Wednesday at noon Central Standard Time, by Zoom, we're going to be joined by two speakers, both themselves Afghan, talking about the community, the Afghan community in Cedar Rapids, 18 months after the fall of Kabul and their arrival to Eastern Iowa. And so I would encourage folks to go check out that program, not only yourselves, but also to spread the word. Part of what I think is starkly apparent is that a lot of folks just don't know. There's so much about life that keeps us busy, and when we look at all these different issues, housing, medical care, mental health, etc., people are clued in on some of these things, but not all of them, which is impossible for any of us. So education is really crucial. And I don't really think many people know much, if anything, about the community of Afghans in Cedar Rapids. And so this is just, one opportunity for education. And it's, we want to make it as accessible and available as possible. I think our two speakers are going to be fabulous. And, the more questions that we can have for them about how we can celebrate the community and how we can support the community, the better. So I'm happy to share more information about that. We've sent out the program announcement quite widely. But if you have if you have questions or want me to send it directly to you, please just let me know, and I'll put in the chat box here the ICFRC email.
And I'll forward the invitation to everyone in the email so that you can have you would know.
Thanks, Sunday.
Yeah, if you go to the ICRFC website, you can go in, you can find it there too. But I'll send out the information today so that people can. We always like it if people can register so that we know we have an estimate. But also just join in. Even if you don't register, go to the link and join in. So I'll send out the information. Any other announcements? I think for the month of March, we have Micah James from the City of North Liberty. It's going to talk to us. Is that right, John?
Yeah. So she was hired on an initiative to welcome our new neighbors that are immigrants, and there were some welcoming day activities that have been done in the past. I think it's in September. So she's going to just talk about the North Liberty initiative. And she gave me a little bit of information for me to do a little research of what Coralville and Iowa City and Johnson County did as well. So I think it will be kind of a theme of welcoming. So that fits well also with what we're trying to do for World Refugee Day. So anyway, that's the plan.
So we're still looking for people who would be speakers for. We didn't have anyone pinned down for April, did we?
No.
Okay, so we're looking for April, and we would like to be planning ahead of time. So we appreciate if you or anyone you know is willing to make a presentation. We'll be happy to do that. We'll be happy to have you or someone that you know.
Oh yeah, garden plots.
Will is also announcing that if we'll say it. I can't see what you're.
I just am saying signups for garden plots are starting soon, and we have a lot more this year. We expanded greatly. So if you all are working with folks, immigrant refugee families in the Johnson County area that might be interested in a plot, you can reach out to me, or you can just go to our website and the sign up links will be there in English, French, Spanish, and Arabic soon. Maybe today. Wish me luck. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Fun. Okay. Well, thanks again for inviting us. We really appreciate having the opportunity. So thanks, Sunday.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming. And if in the absence of anything, I would adjourn this meeting, and hopefully we'll meet again. We'll get information as much information as we get. If you want us to send any information to the group, please just send an email to me and I'll forward you to the entire group. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming in this morning, and have a nice week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.